All right. There's something I don't understand. Sorry, we only been home a couple days. The cats are very needy. So, if I want to make beer in my house, there's things for that. You can pretty much go buy a kit at Walmart. You can also do this if you want to make wine in your house. If you want to make beef jerky, if you want to make yogurt, I've got a yogurt machine right behind me. That's a yogurt machine. If you want to make any kind of alcoholic beverage, if you want to can various things, you can do that. What if I want to make cheese?
Sure. Or butter.
I've never heard butter. Heck, butter we did in school as a, like, you got buttermilk and we shook it up in the little jars and it was butter. I've never heard of anybody making their own cheese.
Well, Abby's made non-dairy cheese, but it's a very similar process.
What'd she do?
Entirely. I mean, it had to do with preparing she used cashews or almonds. So she had to prepare those. And then she had to, I think she actually used cheesecloth and put it in a mold.
Theoretically what it's for.
And let it age. I mean, it seemed like a pretty straightforward thing, but I wasn't that much involved in it. She did it all and it seemed to work. I'm sure the process with cheese is a little different, but probably not that much different.
This is the first time I've ever heard of somebody making cheese, except occasionally like as a cottage cheese or something like that, but like a real cheese. I never have heard of that. And I'm like, that could be my life. I could just make cheese now.
Be surprised if there wasn't some YouTube video somewhere or a kit maybe you could buy that would sort of teach you how to get started. I would think that would be a thing.
There's a bunch of shit that teaches you how to make thermite. I would think there'd be something to teach you how to make cheese. I could get way into that. I also wondered
into it.
I don't want it. I didn't do it on purpose. I don't want that one. I don't like puns that I don't do on purpose.
Okay.
Gross. I wondered if it's not riskier than other stuff, but it can't be riskier than freaking yogurt.
I wouldn't think so.
Yogurt's all full of little crumblies and creepies and crawlies and cephalopods and whatever.
No, yeah, I wouldn't think that it was riskier. No.
Oh, look into this. Maybe I'll make some cheese. We brought back, so when we were in Oregon, there's a place in Oregon called Tillamook. And it is pretty well known nationally in some circles. It's a dairy. It's a town that is famous for its dairy. And it also is a dairy farmers co-op. So apparently it did make some news when like COVID happened and stuff, because it kept up production better than others because it was a co-op. And they make really good, well, all sorts of dairy, but they particularly make really good cheese. And it's really easy to get just in the grocery stores in Oregon. So we always get some to like snack on it. We didn't eat enough of it. And so Trish brought it home on the plane. So now we have it. And I was having some the other day and I was like, you never hear about people making home crafted cheese. You hear about Kraft cheese, but that's spelled differently and it's not as good. Yeah, I might have to look into that.
I think it is I think it's you've got to have some place to put it and it can't be disturbed. I mean, I think that's a big issue is space. I mean, it's actually space.
It needs silence to think.
You were just talking about wine. I mean, that obviously has to have some place to be for a long time.
Oh yeah,
Age, I guess. So, I mean, Yeah, I don't know.
I just, all of the rest of them I hear about all the time. And like I said, if you go to a big store, you can just, there's a kit there. But I'm like, I've never heard of that for cheese making. We'll have to see. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Magical Talking Hat Podcast. Only podcast in the world that actually began as a gentleman's wager between two railroad barons in the 19th century who are long dead, about which none of us know. I'm Tony.
I'm William, and this is episode 553.
All right. And I've apologized to William earlier, but I don't like William very well, so I'm going to share his apology with the rest of you all. I was very unresponsive while I was on vacation, and it may have appeared that I phoned in the last episode. It may even appeared that I was kind of high the last episode. I'm not going to go into that. But what I will say is I really cut everybody but Trish off from in the world from me during the time in the beach house. And I don't see anything wrong with that, but I probably should have prepared better and warned people better. William sent me all sorts of shit that I just ignored, as did several other friends as well. And so I am sorry about that. And I'm sorry that I kind of did a half-assed job last week for all of you listening. But I am back with my entire ass here. So, for those of you just joining us, don't pay attention to that ass talk. We have Hat is Magic, and that it has its own email address, the magical talking hat at gmail.com. And people, more people, we need people. People do it. Right into that email address. I would narrow it down, but based on some of the things that I've been told Azure Talent has sent, I'm going to say send in whatever the crap they want. The hat forwards it to us. We read them on the air, talk about them, and whatever the crap we want, and that's the show. How have you been? Are you still hooked up to a vacuum? I forget how these things work.
Yep.
You're looking at something on the floor and be like, are you
That's
still
right
hooked
here.
up to a vacuum? No, but I got this puppy.
I mean, I just talked, I was just in to see the surgeon today.
Oh, yeah?
They said everything looked all right, that they think that one person who was working on it, who had some experience with these things, thought that maybe I could be done with it in a week. I don't know if that's optimistic or what, but that would be nice if the next time I podcast, I don't have it.
That would be nice. You tell them that specifically. Say, I've got a podcast on Thursday, so if we could get rid of this by the next one, that would be awesome.
Well, I had to, so my cardiac rehab was over, it wasn't Zoom, but it was over whatever their application is for the hospital. And I think I used my microphone because I think we've determined that the computer microphone's not all that great. And the guy was like, what do you need a microphone like that for? I mean, not mean or anything. He just thought that was weird. I had this microphone.
Jesus, compensating for something.
So I told him all the stuff I used it for. And so then he asked me some questions about recording and like, what's that round thing that people sometimes have in front of their microphones, things like that. He's just asking me all these questions, which fortunately I knew all of the answers, but it's like, I'm not a sound engineer or anything, but
you seemed like an expert.
Kind of, I guess.
So long story short, you're mixing his band's next album.
Yes. But anyway, so yeah, I was talking to the surgeon today and they seemed optimistic. I mean, they took x-rays and stuff. They say I can drive now. I mean, that's kind of a big deal when they say you can drive, because that means that they think that if you were to get in some kind of accident, you wouldn't get more injured than someone who hasn't had chest surgery. So that indicates that you're, at least from a skeletal standpoint, you're probably healed up, in that area. So that's good to know. But so really the way they made it sound was in just about every measure, I'm doing like really, really good. It's just the incision. That's it that they're worried about. So
And I'm like, it's funny to me because I'm just like, why is it such a big deal? Like, because I've had those before and I've even had infections and you have to deal with it, but it's not, you don't need a giant machine. And then I'm like, of course, mine weren't right next to my heart. So that could be a factor. If the infection spreads, its first stop is your goddamn heart. That could be a deal.
much. Well, and I think they felt bad about it. I mean, every time I go in, they seem really sad that that I have to make that this has to go on any longer than it needs to, because if this is a week and I'm done, well, that will be about 2 weeks longer than that aspect of my recovery should have taken, and they seem to feel really bad about that, which that's very sweet of them. But they don't.
As soon as you leave, they crack up. The whole thing's a scam. On your last visit, Ashton Kutcher is going to jump out, or maybe Chance the Rapper. I've lost track of who does it now. Jamie Kennedy. I don't know. The guy from Jackass. Somebody. It'll
Really
just
nice.
be me. It'll
They're
just
really
be
nice.
me.
They're really nice people there, and it's it's weird. Yeah, everyone says this when they have to go through a procedure and go into a clinic every so often. You meet such nice people, and it's fun to get to know them. But of course, the whole goal is for you possibly to never see them again.
Right.
Yeah, that's a little weird, but yeah. So, but anyway, it's
I've
hopefully
often
another
wondered
week.
about that, especially
another
from
week.
their perspective. Like they see you long enough that they kind of develop a thing, but then you're always gone. That's probably just true in the medical profession as a whole. So you still got to sleep in the chair?
I mean, no one's telling me not to sleep in my bed. I just don't. I'd be horrified if I turned over and like smashed this thing into the wound or whatever and made it worse. Or, I mean, I don't know if that's even possible. So yeah, I'm sleeping in the chair just to make sure that I stay in one position. And it's not that bad. I mean, it's certainly better than when I was in the hospital. Certainly better than that. But
And you still haven't washed yourself in like a month and a half.
I for until I got this, I could shower if I did it in a particular way. And now I just, I sponge bath type of thing. I do that, on a regular basis. I don't want to be gross. But,
I do miss the shower on vacation. But I also felt guilty about. I think that shower was putting out way more water than is appropriate in the 21st century. It was a grandfather did that shower had a lot of pressure, and then the little side jets were a fair bit too, but it was nice. I got home every time I travel, particularly in the shower, there's this thing where whether you liked it or you didn't like it or whatever, there's a familiarity once you get home. Like everything's where I expect. I know how to twist the temperature just right, stuff like that. And I had that, but I was also like, wow, our shower head's really kind of weak. I didn't realize.
So we have a lamp in our
Yeah,
living room.
your whole deal looks different now. I like it.
Well,
Except the boxes, but I got all this.
yeah,
crap.
we've moved all of that stuff out of this room over here so we could paint it and turn it into an office.
Yeah.
But of course, you start that and then it takes, I mean, these boxes weren't supposed to be out here more than like a weekend, and they've been out here the whole time. It's probably all right though, considering the surgery and everything that happened. And I mean,
you got a lot of reasons for not.
Yeah. But anyway, so when the lighting was so bad last time that Abby took the lamp and she's positioned it so the light's shining on me, and the overhead light is on.
Yeah.
Which I didn't have on before because of my ball cap, creating a shadow, but that takes care of that. So she worked really hard to make it look nicer.
She did a great job. It was good.
Yeah, she's good at set dressing, that's for sure.
Well, and you saw the finished product. You looked terrifying. And it was so bad because it was the first time I'd seen you since
Yeah,
the thing. And I was like, is this all just because of the surgery? Because I want to be like, yeah, you look good, buddy. Yeah, you're fine. No.
like yeah, everything's pretty good. My voice isn't very good. I don't know if that's ever going to get fixed or if this is just how it's going to be now.
It
Mm,
sounds pretty similar to how I remember it sounding.
okay.
I can hear a little roughness, but not a lot.
Well, it's hard. It's harder to talk to. It's like
Well, in that
it's just
it's exactly as hard to listen to you as it was before. So I can't see a difference there.
good. No, I mean I have to work a lot harder to make, if I was speaking in where comfortably, like I didn't feel like I was working hard to talk, it would
Yeah.
almost be a whisper. So I don't know what
Huh.
to do about that. Effort
How's
into being
school?
heard. Well, it's hard to say. In some ways, it seems like it's going better than usual, but because I've got like, you know, 5 appointments a week, if you count the person who has to come 3 times a week for this, and then the clinic I have to do every week so they can follow up on what that person's doing. And then I've got cardiac rehab, and that's the basic level of appointments. There might be more on top of that. It's making my time, it's really hard to
Yeah.
get things done.
Yeah.
So that part's harder, but it seems like the work itself is kind of smoother. It's hard to, so whenever I get to the place where I don't, that's going to be 3 hour, an hour and a half long appointments gone when this is gone.
Yeah.
When that time opens up, I might find that this quarter is going smoothly, not because the subject matters are easier, but because I think I might actually be getting the hang of it a little bit. If that makes
That's
any
what I
sense.
wonder. Like, good or bad or whatever, you get used to how the school works and how the classes work and how the interface and all that.
Right,
That's
right.
eventually just and your life gets used to being a student. And yeah. No, that totally makes sense.
So I mean, I feel like that's happening. I think I'm kind of getting the hang of this. I wish I wasn't on these time crunches so I could kind of enjoy the progress I'm making. But it's kind of like this wound is like I'm making all this progress in every other way, but this thing is getting in the way of me really feeling it or enjoying it. But it's just a few weeks more or a week or 2 more, and this thing will be gone. And when that happens, I think things will improve dramatically.
I think you're gonna miss it. I think you're gonna be super sad it's
So
not around anymore.
it doesn't like really bother me that much. Just the fact that I have, that it's that I have to wait for the wound itself to be healed. Carrying the thing around and being responsible for it, it's not that big a deal. And it's certainly better than having, before this, my wife had to do a lot of stuff to treat the wound and things, and I didn't like her having to do that. So I much prefer that to what I was doing before. But I would just like it to be over with, to be done, so I
Oh, of
can
course.
start
Of course.
living life the way I was before. But so what else happened on your vacation for the rest of it?
Not a
Just
lot.
taking it easy?
We went out a little bit. I think, yeah, the day after on Friday, we actually went out to lunch at a place, which was fine. It wasn't that interesting. And then Saturday we went down the Newport Bayfront just a little bit. There is a statewide mandate in Oregon to wear masks inside and out all the time when you're around other people. Down on the Bayfront, not everybody was going for that. So that was not great. But we did get to see where the sea lions are that are constantly yelling. I kind of miss those guys. It's 24 hours, always yelling. So that was nice. But yeah, otherwise we just sort of stayed at home, didn't do a lot. Finished up Squid Game. Did you ever watch Squid Game? Yeah, you can skip it. I'm not going to say it was bad. You can skip it. Watched not a lot of great movies, weirdly. Uh what else did we watch? We didn't do very much. We watched a lot of Bob's Burgers. Um I'm really binging through that. I haven't so season 2 of Ted Lasso is done. I haven't watched it yet. That'll be one of my next things. Um we just recently started, we're 2 episodes into Sweet Tooth on Netflix. You see that?
We watched a few episodes and decided it wasn't our thing. Didn't seem
I
bad.
I was not into the first episode. I'm more into the second episode. Because I'm tired of post-apocalyptic shit. I'm so tired of it. And I'm mostly tired of it because usually the point of the post-apocalyptic shit is humans really suck when their life's on the line. And there's some of that here, but there's also sometimes humans can actually make shit work. And when the apocalypse happens, they can make these little communities and still function remarkably well and actually not as dissimilar from their old life as you would think. And I'm like, that I'm behind that. That's cool. And that kid's pretty adorable. So that helps. Um Last night we watched a movie called Jacob's Wife. It might only be on Shudder. Jacob with a K. And Trish liked it. I think I liked it. I don't think it's a very good movie, but I liked it. It was clumsy as fuck. Like it just really it didn't I knew what they were doing. It was not a subtle movie, but it just wasn't everything. The lines weren't quite realistic and it was just weird, but it's an interesting movie. It's basically stop bugging your sister. Get away from there. Sorry, children. It's a vampire movie that's basically vampirism as female liberation. It's the very cowed and quiet wife of a pastor gets bitten by a vampire and starts making her own decisions, and going from there. And it's a neat idea. And like I said, it's entertaining. I think I would recommend it. But it wasn't great film craft by a long shot. There were weird things that didn't make sense, and the lines were strange. It had a handful of really choice lines, but otherwise it was kind of disaster. But it's Barbara Crampton, who, if you've watched a lot of B movies and horror movies and stuff, you're familiar with her. And she's very cool. So yeah, but I think that's it. I have done very little. I know. To be fair, you were hiding behind a thing and looking at him. That pretty much sets him off. I know, victim blaming. It's tricky with cats. But yeah, I haven't really been doing much otherwise. What? I'm right here. Your butt's sticking out. I can see you're not lost. Did you put something back there? Is there like a dead mouse back there or something? Yeah, you. Sorry about that. Yeah, let's do some questions, huh?
Okay.
We don't have a lot of questions, people. You got to write in more emails. Email. All right, I'll do this first one here. This first one, unless I'm confused, is from Stu. Does that match with your elaborate starship setup you've got there?
Just I'm not in there in the office, so I
Uh,
have just have
you're
the
not
one
at the
screen.
bridge. All right.
No.
How boring. If climate change makes living in Iowa untenable, where would you consider moving? That's a very interesting question, I think, specifically for you.
I mean, I think it needs to be said that the chances that I'll ever leave Iowa for any reason are pretty much zero. But the
I mean,
stipulation is
several of the bordering states legally won't allow him to enter. So
that this question specifically stipulates that people can't live here anymore. Like can't. It's just impossible. That's what I understand Stu is saying.
yeah.
So if that's the
And
condition,
let's say the sort of whole plain states area, because it's not like Iowa, you can't live anymore. Where will you move? Missouri? No, that's not like, this whole region is a problem now.
fact of the matter is, if I lived in a latitude that was more in line with my European ancestors, I couldn't live in the United States. I'd have to live pretty far deep into Canada just to be at the same latitude that my great grandparents lived in. I live very far south compared to where all of my ancestors lived. So, I would just go north as far as I needed to be comfortable, and I'm sure that would be into Canada if Iowa was that bad off. I mean, I think that's what most people would do, right? I mean, if southern climes get bad, they'll just have to go north.
Well, but that's the sci-fi movie version. Because the problem is, well, there's a lot of problems. This question is terrible. But no, the issue is like take right now and the severe weather within Iowa that makes life difficult, let's say. We can still live here, but the winters are pretty serious. Sometimes the summers are pretty serious, and they seem to be steadily getting worse thanks to climate change. Meanwhile, very far south from us here are places that are nicer. If you're on like a different coast and things, latitude is not the only thing that determines it. So, like, for example, weather-wise, the place I would most like to live, or temperature-wise, is San Francisco. It is really good at never being too hot or too cold, which I would love. Unfortunately, so would everybody else, which is why it is the most expensive cost of living anywhere. But the second major issue with this question is if climate change has fucked up Iowa so bad, we don't know what it's done to the other places. Like if it's fucked up Iowa, then Portland could be on fire. I don't even know. So I'm trying to figure out my hunch. Stu, you can tell me if I'm wrong in the blog. Any of you can tell me if I'm wrong in the blog. Magicaltalkinghat.com. Go there, tell me I'm wrong. My gut is that this isn't about climate change. Climate change is the most likely answer why one would not be able to live here anymore. But I'm going to switch it up a little bit and say if for magical, mystical reasons that did not change environments at all, you could no longer live in Iowa or any of its adjacent states and had to move because the police said so, to where would you move? And you still gonna go with Canada? Canada's nice. I don't know if they'll let you in. It's expensive to move to Canada. It's not expensive to live in Canada. It's expensive to move to Canada from the US.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, framing the question that way, I suppose I would probably still want to stay in the continental United States. I'd probably still be going north though. And if it wasn't, Minnesota, it would be like,
It wouldn't be because I said no adjacent states.
it would be Anna or something like that, I suppose.
Which ones? Sorry, you cut out when you said them.
Wyoming or Montana,
Oh,
or I mean, possibly Washington or Oregon, maybe. I don't know. Just that general, like the
west, not
western
east.
part. Yeah, I don't think east. I don't think so.
Indiana can fuck itself.
I mean, there are things about like Maine that are appealing, but I think I would probably go north and west. I think is what I would do. You?
I mean, there are a lot of other factors. Literally, that's the only factor. Probably Oregon. I mean, places I would like to live. Canada's definitely on the list. The UK is on the list. So yeah, like British Columbia or somewhere in the UK would be great, but there's a lot of other factors there, and I don't know that I could do those.
Alaska would be all right. I mean, I've got a brother that lives there and things.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing I'm wondering. It's like, where do I know people, and do I want to move to where I know people?
Yeah.
If we're talking about climate change, then Stu, the answer is wherever the hell it's still tenable to live.
Right. We probably wouldn't have a lot of choices.
I mean, in the safety zone on the post-apocalyptic map we have that's been drawn out by a chosen one kid or something, tattooed on their back. I don't know how it works. Fucking post-apocalyptic.
Well, if
Let me
you
ask you something. Oh, sorry.
okay, I was
No,
going to
you.
ask you a question.
No, you ask.
I was going to pose a question about
What's that?
what if
Your face.
what if the choice was stay on Earth or go to Mars? Staying on Earth is, it's not necessarily going to kill you right away, but you're going to be miserable. Will probably kill you sooner than later. Mars, providing you make it there are people there and everything. It's fine. The odds of your survival and living, say, 30 or 40 years is actually pretty good. But you have to go to Mars and deal with all the stuff that people who live on Mars have to deal with. Would you go, or would you just sort of take your chances staying on Earth?
I mean, how many people are there? Is Elon Musk gonna be like my neighbor?
Probably.
Because I'm not into that. I mean,
Life on Mars is going to be a challenge for a very long time.
well,
It's not
yeah,
going to be super comfortable. It's,
that would make sense.
I'm just saying that you'll likely live, like I said, for 20 or 30 more years, but it's not going to be easy. Whereas if you stay here, you probably won't live that long. And it's also going to not be easy. But I mean, getting into a ship and going into space and dealing with some of those challenges too, that's a lot to deal with. A lot of things you're not sure if you'll be able to cope with very well. Or, you could be miserable for
Yeah.
those 20 years, totally miserable.
I mean, and the real answer is it's going to depend on a lot of specifics. But the short answer is no. I don't give a shit about Mars. I never have. I can't explain why, because I don't understand why the rest of you do, but I don't care. Like, it's cool that we got some skateboards over there. I mean, sending skateboards to Mars is cool, I guess. Like, What, three of them now? Have we got three of them on Mars?
What you mean? Rovers, you
Curi-
mean?
Okay.
Oh, okay.
When I was a kid, we called them skateboards. I don't know what the youth call them now. Those, it's neat that we did that, like from a science perspective, but I don't give a shit about Mars. And honestly, the it's very quickly turning into, let's find a new place to live because we've fucked this one up. And this is the thing that's been getting to me lately when people talk about survival and all this. And I mean, it comes up in Squid Game, go figure, and in every post-apocalyptic thing. The only thing that came out of the TV show The 100 that was any good is there is one priority higher than making sure humanity survives, and that priority is making sure humanity deserves to survive. And the hubris and the ego with like, we've fucked this one up, let's go find another one. Like, I'm not into it. I'm not saying that on principle I would rather stay here and die, but like, you're gonna have to give me more for me to want to fucking go to Mars, especially if Elon Musk is there and is alphanumeric. Elon Musk's an asshole. What are you talking about? I don't want to hang out with that fucker.
It's a pretty big planet, so I don't know.
Yeah, but if there's only like 100 of us,
Okay, well, sure.
I mean,
guess.
I think part of surviving is I don't think I can go make my own giant Mars ranch. I mean, if that's what's going on, if I'm gonna get rich with herds of buffalo like in Futurama, I'm all over that. Trade the planet to the native Martians for one giant bead. Oh, I miss Futurama. It's a good show. But no, I'm assuming the initial people who live on Mars will probably have to be pretty tight knit.
Maybe. I suppose so, yeah.
And that guy sucks. What about you? You going? You going to Mars?
I'm kind of with you on the point of it would take a lot to persuade me to do it. I don't know why I'm not interested. I mean, I'm interested in space as a subject and space travel as a subject to follow and to study and understand. But I've never been personally interested in space travel or going to another planet or living on another planet. I don't have any desire to do those things. And I have a sense that I wouldn't be very successful at space flight or at living on another planet. It feels like it would be, if I gained any extra time of living, the quality of my life would be very low for a variety of reasons. So
for some reason, I get into it if it's an extrasolar planet a little bit. Then I'm like, oh, there's things to discover. But Mars to me has always seemed very much like a giant rock. But yeah, this is the useful thing for both of us, is it's even more hypothetical than it is for other people, because you and I have on paper straight up won't be allowed to do any of these.
We would never be, yes, we'd never be selected as astronauts in 1,000 years.
For so many physical reasons, for a complete lack of like skills that they'll be needing. Like we are not going into Space Force. Like I don't know if I could make the military at large take me at this point. Sorry, my camera's shaking. One of my cats keeps rubbing up on it.
I can't imagine wanting to do it. I would, I can just imagine someone saying, you come with us and you'll live another 30 years, stay here, you'll die within 10. I can see myself totally still thinking I need to, that's not enough. Like, 10 years, that's okay. I just don't,
I can see myself going, you pulled those numbers out of your butt. I want to see your data.
I don't
Um,
know. It would take a lot to persuade me to do it.
I can understand the mindset. I don't have it, but I can understand why somebody would like it. I mean, it's the whole exploration thing again, and it's the same people, same thing that brought a lot of people to the Americas and that kind of thing. I just, yeah, I like comfort. That's, I don't think you're supposed to really say that, but I do. I like things being comfortable. And I don't, there's legacy issues, and it's not the kind of legacy I care about. I don't need to be on a plaque somewhere as the first crew of Martians or whatever.
Well, also, I think people underestimate the adaptability of human beings. Like, how do you know it's only going to be 10 years? I mean, I could think of a lot of ways to stretch that out. Who
Right.
knows? You don't
And
know.
how do you fucking know it's going to be 30? It's going to be 3 weeks. I'm going to drop a Mars rock on my suit.
Yeah. Right. There's 1,000 things I could do. Yeah. I just,
In the Wayfarer Chronicles by Becky Chambers, that I have been slowly reading, that are some of my favorite books ever right now. The third one is about, so this is set in a future where Earth was fucked up enough that one group built a fleet of giant spaceships and just took off. And they set it up so that they essentially could recycle things and all that, keep themselves going indefinitely. And they lived that way for generations and generations and generations, and eventually found the greater galactic community, basically. And then humans became a part of that, and there was sort of a diaspora going on. But the fleet still exists, and in fact now it basically floats in one star system, and a lot of people still live on it. And the one book was really dealing with the idea of the people who still live there and people who might want to come there versus a lot of people, because mostly people leave. And it was really interesting, and dealing with the ideas of the stuff that they did because that was how they survived, and then they were raised by people who were taught that, but now it doesn't matter, and why you might still want to live in that place. And it helps that it's all very much a communal economy in a way that the rest of the galaxy is not. But it was a really interesting look at that kind of thing. And I would highly recommend it. I believe that one was called We Spaceborne Few, but you really should read them in order. So do that. I've been thinking about going back to a book I read a long time ago by C.S. Friedman called This Alien Shore. And it had a lot of things going for it. And one I really liked is it's a space sci-fi thingy. And it doesn't have aliens, but it has sort of aliens. The idea was the first version of faster than light travel was something, I think they used Hawking drives, and it produced radiation that essentially mutated the people who lived there, and then they settled somewhere, and then later somebody taught them regular FTL, and so they went out to all these places, and these places had mutated, these people had mutated enough that they're essentially different species now, and they come from human stock, but they're different, they're no longer genetically compatible. And so that was interesting. I do kind of like the different takes on how we would get to other planets and things like that in sci-fi. I always think it's a little bit of a cheat where you're just like, yeah, no, these aliens showed up and they taught us how to hit this button and then we fold space. Like, yeah, all right. I want to go back to, I want to ask you something about Appalachia.
Okay.
because I consider you an expert. I've literally never heard anyone talk about Appalachia except you. So you're my expert. They got a lot of black people there.
I don't, I mean, yes, I probably just trying to
Sorry,
think,
could you repeat that answer?
trying to think of the right way to express it. There are some places where there's a disproportionately high number of African Americans,
Okay.
and there are some places where there's a proportional amount. I think most places in Appalachia are going to be proportional or disproportionately high in African Americans.
Oh, really?
Sure, it's like a lot of
Okay.
the South. A lot of the
Yeah,
South that
but
way.
historically, when you think of Appalachia, it's white people. Like when you ever they're depicted in movies and shit like that, it's white people.
Well, it's because that's because a lot of times in movies they're I mean, okay, there are cities in Appalachia, right? And the the African Americans are disproportionately represented in those places versus out in the country. And a lot of times in movies when they're using Appalachia as a backdrop, they're it's like in the hills or in the middle of nowhere in rural areas where you're still going to find African Americans, but that's going to be a higher proportion of white people. And when you get into the urban areas, you're going to get a higher proportion of African Americans, which I mean that's kind of true in Iowa also. You'll find a higher proportion, a larger proportion of African Americans in urban areas in Iowa versus living in farms and in small towns.
So I saw a trailer for a movie where a black man and his family crash in Appalachia, and they wake up in this he wakes up in this tiny town. He doesn't know what happened to his family. And it's this backwoods community of folk. And like they can't get him to a hospital. He's all beat up, but they're using like weird alternative methods. I think a voodoo doll gets involved and shit like that. And it's just a bunch of black people. And this had never come. I had never seen black Appalachian communities in entertainment. And I was like, is this a thing? And you say all that, and that makes sense now. But at the time, I was like, this is weird. So, all right, it still didn't look like a movie I wanted to see, but at least I know it wasn't making that shit up.
As far as I know.
All right, good job, movie. All right, shall we go on?
Yeah.
Oh, there's a movie called The Room, which is a problem. There's a lot of movies that should be one that gets blackballed. No more calling your movie Room, A Room, or The Room, because there are a lot of movies with that title and they are very different. And some of them have been nominated for Oscars, and some of them were created by Tommy Wiseau. And it's really not fair to mix those up. But anyway, yet a more recent one called The Room is a weird horror thriller thing about this couple that buy an old house, and then they find there's a room in it where you can get whatever you want and all this stuff. And
You
Trish and
talked
I
about
watched
this.
it.
You talked
did
about this
we?
last time. Yeah.
All right. It's not good. But I did confirm, because I was pretty sure on it, and I did. If you go to YouTube and you go to a YouTube channel called Alter, Alter, which has a bunch of short form horror films. I recommend the channel in general. It's a good channel if you like short horror films. There is a film called The Doll Maker that is essentially the same movie except 9 minutes long and way better. So go watch that instead. Right now. Do it. I'll stay here. Go. All right. Oh, you should do the next email. It's your turn.
Nick.
Mick. Mick.
There's like there's 3 or 4 questions here,
All right.
but we cover them all in one go.
I mean, we cover by emails now, so
I know Tony is forcing you to get away from eating tasty little note cards that you can happily belch up because he's tired of writing little note cards. Wow, that's quite an accusation. Are you going to stand for that?
no, it's fine with me. That
So-
can suck it.
So I'm submitting multiple questions in an email to make him do the work of separating them or risk doing a whole show of just my questions. Mwahaha. Mine is an evil laugh. Well, I didn't do it very well, so sorry, Mick. Question. What do you think of
Sure.
writing aid software like Word Anvil
World
or a
World Anvil.
World Anvil or Campfire Blaze? As storytellers, would products like these aid your creativity, stifle it, or just make you go meh? I don't see what issue there would. I don't know what this software is, but
I am mildly familiar with World Anvil. I think they are cool if they are helpful to you. The things they appear to be for are not issues in the creative process that I have trouble with. So they do not seem like useful aids to me. Also, I am lazy, so I have not bothered to go check them out. But again, the stuff when I hear about them that it will help with is not stuff that I have an issue with. And this is a big thing as I get older, as a GM and as an author. Not what are the best tools and aids, what are the ones that are most useful for me? Because the things I have trouble with and the things I don't have trouble with aren't the same as everyone else. But I like the idea. So yeah, that part is cool.
I think if any kind of thing that helps you out to get the story out there is, I mean, there's no reason to object.
Do you
it, I
use
mean-
any special software in your creations? I
I'm
got
not
a thing for
opposed
a
to it.
while that I was gonna use OneNote for my GMing. It didn't work. I mean, it was a neat idea, but it was just a bunch of stuff I didn't use. They're neat things, but yeah, it doesn't impact me too much.
Not against it, or I mean, if you find something that works for you, I think that's great.
Next.
Okay. For each of you separately, which writing trope in genre fiction is your favorite and which do you dread dealing with? For examples of how I'm defining tropes, see overly sarcastic productions and their excellent trope talks on YouTube. Red Rules. Tropes that I like and tropes that I don't like.
Well, it's weird because it sounds like from our own perspective, like I don't have any tropes that I dread dealing with in my own work because I don't put them in my own work if I don't like them. I mean, I've talked a lot about fucking fantasy racism. I fucking hate fantasy racism. And fantasy racism can be orcs are evil. And elves and dwarves don't get along because of ancient enmities. Or it can also be people with magic. It can be X-Men racism also. And then sometimes it's just normal racism. If you're in a fantasy world and it's like, yeah, the people from this country hate the people from that, that's just normal racism. It happens to be in a fantasy game, but it's just normal racism. I don't like normal racism either, but I don't like fantasy racism. I don't know what tropes are my favorite. That's a weird one.
mean, you know, I found that there was a time where I was just starting to kind of get into fiction where I thought, oh, I like this particular genre or trope. And then later realized, I don't, it it was fun when I had first discovered it. And I didn't know how it was going to work, or that this had been done over and over and over and over again by a whole bunch of people to the point where there's really not much else to do with it. Nowadays, I don't really, I'm kind of like you. I don't really think of myself as having a favorite trope, or even a trope I don't like, because if I run into, like, I typically don't like sexist tropes, right? Like damseling women and things like that. But that doesn't mean that every time I see it in a movie, it's so distracting. I hate it. And I hate because a lot of times it's either not a big deal, or they have some clever way of subverting it, or so I can't even really say I 100% hate even those tropes. Tropes are just what they are, and it all really depends on. And it's almost like saying what kind of tropes you like or dislike is the same as saying what kind of modeling clay do you like or dislike. It doesn't really matter. It's what the person makes out of the clay. And
that being said, almost everyone who works with clay probably has a modeling clay that they like and a modeling clay they don't like.
True. You're right about that.
It'd be weird if they didn't have an opinion on that.
That's right. You're right about that.
Sure. Well, and also famously, I get very frustrated with time travel stuff. I don't know that that's something I stay away from. I actually kind of seek out a lot of time travel things. I just get really pissed off when it's done bad.
Right.
I'm kind of into time loops, which is a fad right now. There's a lot of time loop stuff going on, but I kind of like those. I find them interesting. Also, there's a genre I kind of like. So the fantasy genre that's actually sci-fi, early speculative fiction had a lot of it, but Ellie Modesitt did it, Robert Silverberg did it. The thing where you're in a fantasy setting, but it's actually another planet that humans from Earth came to, but it was so long ago that like nobody remembers that anymore, and it's just and like where the point is not that you can't, like, because there's some stories where it's like, oh, it turns out you're actually from Earth this whole time, and that's the whole. And then there's ones where like that's a factor that you may learn about in the series, but that's not the point of it. And I kind of enjoy that. I like the idea of humanity actually going out from this planet to other places and then just having societies that have nothing to do with us. So that's kind of neat. All right, next. We're running out of time.
These stories. Why is this a thing? I really want to understand why popular culture has embraced the idea of hopeless apocalypse, where every protagonist you get attached to either dies and becomes a horrendous monster the ever shrinking group of heroes must tearfully destroy, or is secretly more monstrous than the antagonist zombies. Was there a memo to the elite fandom Illuminati that I missed stating that nihilism is now enjoyable? Well, yeah, okay. I mean, you were kind of talking about this earlier.
And I can't let this go because he in fact said B is secretly more monstrous than the antagonist zomzoms. Not zombies, because that is way cooler. I'm starting to worry for Mick's mental. Mick is very focused on what other people like in their pop culture, and it's weirding me out.
You were kind of talking about this before, that, you know, some of these movies or some of this kind of narrative about, you know, a lot of the apocalypse stories you were saying, and they're just about how terrible people are when things get bad and they're just awful to each other. And
Yeah.
I mean, that does
And
seem
that,
to be like the main theme of things like
yeah,
The Walking Dead and stuff.
yeah. Zombies are a thing. Well, I mean, the apocalypse is the thing because everybody's worried the apocalypse is going to happen. And also because everybody thinks it's interesting to be like, what if the very fragile trappings of our superior civilized society suddenly disappeared? How would we function? Which I don't give a shit about. Also, earlier versions of zombies is the fear of conformity, that you just become like everybody else, and who are you? You're just a nameless zombie. Um, the other version, I mean, if I'm being charitable, the zombie stories are just another apocalyptic story, and it's it's a lens to look at the human condition. That is what the people making The Walking Dead would claim their thing was about. Zombies are the setting to look at the human condition, which I'm like, yeah, so was fucking Star Trek, and it didn't make me want to fucking kill myself. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think that's mostly what it is people want to look at humans in isolation like that. And of course, in video games and shit, it's great because uh zombies are and Nazis are the free spots on your murdering people bingo. You're allowed to kill Nazis and zombies and still be the goodest of good guys. Doesn't anybody else you kill, we need to know more. Like you could find zombies just hanging out, not bothering anybody. You kill them, you're fine. Same with Nazis. Of course, by definition, Nazis bothering people. Nazi zombies, best yet, which does happen quite a bit.
Well, do you think, I mean, do you think nihilism is something that's in vogue? And that's, I mean, I, I seriously doubt a lot of these people that enjoy this stuff are like true nihilists. They just are, you know, it's one of those things where it makes them feel smarter or better or ahead of the curve compared to everybody else. But I mean, is that a thing that's out in the culture, you think, that's really sort of capturing people's imaginations? Or because I guess I can't account for the modern popularity of zombie movies. I mean, I observe some of the things you were observing about the metaphor for conformity or for, worrying about apocalypse coming and things like that. But I'm not sure, when I think about all those things, I feel like that can fully account for just how popular some of these things are. I'm not sure what
I
it
mean,
is.
and it really is. There are genuine zombie preppers out there, including ones who don't really believe it's a thing, but still just like doing that.
Yeah, there's that. Yeah, that's true.
And I think that one goes back to the whole zombie thing. On the one hand, it is a way to look at the evils of, I mean, hell, everybody's favorite TV show in the history of the goddamn world is about a high school chemistry teacher who turns into a meth kingpin. Like, we're not doing a lot of positive outlook shit.
Oh, what is that? I
In
wonder.
general. But on top of that, zombies are a way to be a big damn hero without all the problematic stuff associated with colonialism. Pretty much any other time you're doing the badass killing the bad guys thing, it's fucking Rambo essentially invading a country. And there's a reason, because they've got his niece, or because they said bad things about his commanding. I've never seen a Rambo movie in my life. My point is, after the first one, that's what all these movies are about. Just go in and there's some bad guys, but there's so much collateral and shit like that. Zombies are bad. Killing them is not only not bad, it's usually an objective good. And collateral damage is less of an issue because almost all the population is dead. And it's a survivalist fantasy, and survivalism is a popular thing right now because people like to believe, unlike you and I, that deep down they really would be good to go to Mars, like that they would be useful and necessary. I think that's it. I don't know. We're over time though. We still got more shit to do. So cut. Next. Go. Do it.
What is the airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow? Not sure of the answer to the. Oh, he's writing it like the guy on the bridge who can't answer the question.
And then there's a notice at the bottom.
Yeah, notice the author of these questions was thrown out of his comfy chair at this point in the email and ejected into the bog of eternal stench. He is currently in the intensive care unit of the University of Missouri Hospital, recovering from an overextended use of old Monty Python references. No further information is currently available. Oh, that's cute.
And then it says end of line. So we snuck a Labyrinth reference and a Tron reference in there.
Well, I mean, he had little cuts between every question, so that's why
He did.
Hey, well, that's a cute little joke to end with, I guess.
I'm pretty over Monty Python.
You are. Why is that? Just because it's old news.
Don't think it's funny anymore. I mean, I don't wish they never existed or anything. It was a huge. Monty Python had a huge impact on a lot of comedy, and their members went on to do some amazing things. John Cleese is kind of an asshole in his old age, but whatever. It's not that funny anymore. Is a lot of things that get credit for being groundbreaking and original cannot maintain sort of immortal status. I hate to go back to this because I feel mean, but the Beatles did some amazing musical shit and were groundbreaking. And they did some amazing musical shit. They also stole some amazing musical shit from Black people, but then brought it to the mainstream. They were hugely influential. They had an enormous impact on everything. None of that can be dismissed. However,